Ezekiel Sims and Constance Webb are in the Peruvian jungle, in search of a special type of spider that they believe can give supernatural abilities to humans. This is all happening while Constance is heavily pregnant and due to give birth not long. Constance actually ends up finding the spider, but when she goes to show the others, Ezekiel shoots them and tries to take it from Constance, but she resists to give him the spider even though she knows he could shoot her. And unfortunately for her, he does shoot her in the chest. Then all of a sudden there's weird red-ish people come to her rescue and carry her into a tree that has a huge beautiful turquoise lake. One of the men take a spider and let it crawl on her body and bite her in an attempt to save Constance and her baby. She gives birth to a baby girl, and she tries to touch her daughter but she passes before she can touch her. Years later, Cassie is all grown up and is a paramedic who's currently going through her mom's old things. The next day, Cassie is at work and freeing a man from his seat, whose car is flipped upside down. She manages to free him from his seat, but unfortunately the car falls into the river with her inside. When she's underwater, she experiences something very weird and sees web-like things. A blue blob that turns to blood when she touches it, fireworks and a huge neon S sign. She thankfully makes it out of the river alive after her partner Ben performs CPR on her. The next day, while at a burning building emergency, she's performing CPR and has a vision of the paramedic car getting involved in a car crash right as her coworker O'Neill is going to be driving the car, and she tries to convince him to let her drive instead as she tells him she has a weird gut feeling. But he tells her she's probably just paranoid because she almost drowned in the river. But because she's also confused, she decides to listen to O'Neill instead, listening to her intuition, and he does indeed get into a car crash seconds later and he unfortunately passes away on sight. Ezekiel did manage to take the spider back with him to the US, and has supernatural powers because of it, but he keeps having a reoccurring dream about 3 young girls on a mission to kill him for years, and he's gotten himself a hacker to help him track them down. The 3 girls are Anya, Julia and Maddie. His hacker Amaria puts their faces on the system and will get an alert every time they're outdoors so that Ezekiel can kill them first before they off him in the future. When Cassie takes out her popcorn from the microwave, it falls and a glass also shatters, then a bird flies into her window, and it unfortunately dies. But when she closes the window, the crack is gone, as well as the dead bird, and her popcorn's just now finished cooking in the microwave and she's freaked out again. But this time she decides to listen to her intuition and opens the window to see if she's really not going crazy, and the bird flies safely into her apartment, meaning she did change the bird's future. The very same day, Amaria gets an alert that all 3 girls are actually all together in the same place at the same time. And Ezekiel says that he really has to stop them because it can't be a coincidence that they're all in the same place, and he rushes to the subway station. Cassie also decides to take the subway, but as soon as she's inside, things instantly feel weird, and when she looks Anya's way, she has a vision of Anya being attacked by a masked man. And a few moments later, when Julia enters as well, she gets a vision of Julia also being attacked by the same man. Then finally, also has a vision of Maddie being attacked. And this time she believes she's not insane and again follows her intuition and tries taking out the 3 girls out of the train, but they first resist, and she has to steal Maddie's skateboard to get her out of the train. Cassie locks eyes with Ezekiel and he's mad that the girls are suddenly out of the train and tries running to get out. The girls don't believe Cassie when she says that someone's trying to kill them until they see Ezekiel walking on the roof and on top of the train. Cassie steals a cab along with the girls, and when they listen to the radio, they realize that they're the only ones who actually saw Ezekiel and no one else could see him. So to the authorities it looks as though Cassie totally kidnapped them, so she decides to drive them to the nearby woods as that's ironically the safest place for them. When they get there, they all realize that they actually know each other. Cassie saved Julia's stepmom's life and they briefly saw each other at the hospital. Maddie flipped off Cassie as she almost bumped her the day she was taking Julia's stepmom to the hospital. And it turns out that Cassie and Anya actually live in the same building. Cassie tells the girls that she'll be back in an hour as she goes back to her apartment and looks through her mom's things, and finds out that the masked man actually knew her mom personally and was with her in the Peruvian jungle, and his name is Ezekiel Sims. The girls think that Cassie has abandoned them and they decide to walk to a nearby diner and agree to just eat, keep their heads low and get out as soon as possible. But of course that's not what happens. Julia thinks some of the boys in the diner are cute, and Maddie encourages her to go and talk to them. Meanwhile, a man in the diner is reading the newspaper and sees the headline that they've been kidnapped and calls the authorities to report their sighting. But Amaria intercepts the call and connects it to Ezekiel, who pretends to be a police officer, and he drives to the diner in his cool car. Cassie returns and doesn't find them, so she walks to the diner and sees them dancing on top of the tables and scolds them to get down. While they're leaving, Ezekiel enters and starts jumping onto a random man's table and slams his head against the window and then grabs Julia's hair and takes her out. Cassie picks up a bottle and hits Ezekiel with it, but he throws her across the room. Maddie runs towards him, but he grabs her by the neck and strangles her and throws her across the boys' table, while Cassie grabs a knife to fight him. But he turns around the knife on her and she stabs herself, but she comes to, and it turns out it was just a vision. This time, the girls see him and try to get out, and thankfully for them, Cassie drives through the diner and drives him over, and the girls hurry to get inside the car. Ezekiel touches Cassie's hand and slowly poisons her with his poison power, but she manages to break free. During the night, Cassie decides to grab her bag and looks like she's leaving them alone. But she ends up at the crime scene and she has a vision about Ezekiel, but she's able to talk to him and she asks him why he wants to kill the girls, and he says that in the future they have powers and they are the ones that end his life, so he's trying to stop that from happening. He tells Cassie to just tell him where they are because she doesn't even know them personally, and they're not her responsibility at all. Then she wakes up gasping in the motel room, indicating that it was a vision that she had in her dreams. She decides that she needs to go to Peru ASAP and calls Ben to keep the girls safe while she's gone for a week, and he agrees. Cassie arrives in the Peruvian jungle and Santiago, the man who helped her mom give birth to her, was already awaiting her, and he takes her through the jungle and shows her the exact lake she was born in. She still exhibits anger towards her mom as she risked hers and Cassie's life coming to the Peruvian jungle, and Santiago tells her that she needs to heal the wounds of her past in order to clearly see her future. Santiago pushes Cassie into the water and separates her soul from her body, but only her soul falls into the lake and she's brought to the past where Constance and Ezekiel are in the jungle. Constance says to Ezekiel that Cassie's trying to stop her from continuing the search and she says she won't let her do that. Then Cassie asks why she hates her so much. Cassie then witnesses the moment Ezekiel shoots her mom over a spider, and when she's born, and how Santiago and the rest of the spider squad tried hard to save Constance's life. She's then brought into her mom's last OB/GYN appointment when she learns that Cassie actually was supposed to be born with a neuromuscular disorder, but she wasn't at all because Constance decided to go to Peru and find the spider as it would cure her, and it did. She breaks down as she realizes that Constance did everything for Cassie and really loved and cared for her. She talks to her and forgives her, and Constance actually hears her while she's saying all of this, and they hug each other for the first time. Then her soul returns to her body. Meanwhile, back in New York, Mary, who's Ben's sister-in-law, goes into labor 3 weeks earlier than she's supposed to. The girls, Mary and Ben, drive to the hospital as the ambulance will take way too long, and Amaria sees Maddie's face in one of the cameras and tells Ezekiel their location. Ezekiel tells Amaria to make all the traffic lights turn to green and every car in every direction is together on the road at the same time. Ezekiel pulls out a bomb to blow them away, but thankfully again, Cassie comes to the rescue and drives through a billboard and over Ezekiel, and she tells Ben to take Mary to the hospital as Ezekiel won't follow them, and she takes the girls with her. Cassie tells Anya to charge the AED and put the pads onto the roof of the car, and the girls shouldn't touch the sides of the paramedic car. And when Ezekiel steps onto the roof of the car, he's instantly shocked and flies off the roof. The car breaks down and she gets a vision and calls for a helicopter to the location she saw in her vision. And the girls and herself run away from the car and into a building full of explosives. When they get there, the girls and Cassie put fireworks into crates that they see to try and slow down Ezekiel. In this current moment in time, Cassie has now unlocked the full potential of her powers and can see visions in split seconds and react almost instantly, and this helps her help the girls avoid stepping on specific places or avoiding obstacles that will come their way. Julia, Anya and Maddie listen to Cassie at every step, and this leads to them being in different locations from each other. Then Cassie unleashes her new power and splits herself into 3, and she tries helping all of them. Ezekiel sees this and stops Cassie by attacking her so that the other 3 splits of herself return to her body. Ezekiel pushes Cassie down and chases her, and Cassie goes along with this as she has a plan, and she leads him on so that parts of the sign that's breaking down falls on him and causes him to fall downwards, until the big neon S sign falls onto him and crushes him to his death, and just like that, Ezekiel meets his demise. The bridge that Cassie's on falls apart and causes her to fall into the river. Then Julia jumps into the water and carries Cassie to the surface. The girls then perform the CPR that Cassie actually taught them back when they were at the motel together, and they do great and manage to save her. We're then brought to a few weeks into the future where Cassie is blind. The girls all now live with her and are practically sisters.
I have everything I need right here.
Because Anya's dad was deported, Julia's stepmom and dad don't want anything to do with her, and her mom is at a psychiatric facility, and Maddie's parents are out of the country and they don't seem to even want to be her parents anymore. Cassie can still see the future, and we see that the girls do actually end up having spider powers and helping get rid of the crime in their city. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Madam Web. Thanks for watching.